January 1378. A woman walks through the gates of the Vatican. She has traveled 300 kilometers on foot. Her body is frail. She barely eats, rarely sleeps. Her face is gaunt, marked by years of fasting and sleepless nights. But her eyes burn with an intensity that makes even cardinals step back. They part to let her pass. She is here to see the Pope, and she is here to deliver a message that could save the Church or watch it tear itself apart. But this is not the first time she has spoken to popes. 3 years earlier, she stood in a palace in France and said something to Pope Gregory XI that no one else knew. Something that made him go pale. Something that changed everything. We will return to that moment. But first, you need to understand who this woman is. Her name is Catherine. She is 30 years old, the daughter of a wool dyer from Siena. She never attended school. She learned to read late in life. She cannot write. Every letter she sends is dictated to scribes, sometimes 3 at once, as words pour from her faster than they can record. And yet, popes listen to her. Kings seek her counsel. Cardinals wait for her words. The most powerful men in Europe, men who command armies, who shape nations, ask this woman for guidance. How does a woman with no education, no title, no wealth, command such authority? The answer lies in a transformation that began 13 years earlier, in a room barely large enough to stand, where she did not speak to anyone. For 3 years, what happened in that room will give her a voice that cannot be ignored, but it will also mark her body in ways that no one can explain. Wounds that will bleed invisibly for 5 years, until her death. This is not a quick summary. This is not a 10-minute overview. This is the complete story of Catherine of Siena, a 55-minute journey through the life of a woman who changed popes' minds, who received wounds that bled without breaking skin, who died at 33 having walked thousands of kilometers, written hundreds of letters, and watched the Church split in two just by saying what she believed was true. If you want the full story, if you want to understand how silence became the most powerful voice in Europe, stay with me. Welcome to Catholic Hearts. Subscribe now to discover the extraordinary and inspiring stories that shape our Catholic faith. Siena, Italy, March 25th, 1347. The Feast of the Annunciation. The streets are narrow, winding between stone buildings 3 and 4 stories tall. The smell of wool dye hangs heavy in the air, bitter, chemical, inescapable. This is the Fontebranda district, the tanner's quarter, where the city's working class lives and labors. In a modest house on Via dei Tintori, a woman named Lapa Benincasa is giving birth. Again, this is her 24th pregnancy. 24. She has already buried half her children, plague, disease, accidents. This is the 14th century. Survival is not guaranteed. The midwife delivers twin girls. One, Giovanna, is weak. She will die within hours. The other, Caterina, survives. She is small, red-faced, crying. No one knows it yet, but this child will outlive most of her siblings. And she will do something none of them will do. She will speak to popes. But that is years away. For now, she is simply the 24th child of Giacomo and Lapa Benincasa. Giacomo is a wool dyer. Respectable work, but not wealthy. The family is not poor. They own their home, employ a few workers, but they are not noble. They are craftsmen, merchants. The middle tier of Siena's complex social hierarchy. Lapa is strong-willed, practical, devout. She has buried 13 children. She knows how fragile life is, and she is determined that her surviving children will marry well, have families, continue the line. The house is chaos. 25 people living under one roof. Giacomo and Lapa, their surviving children, a few servants, apprentices. The smell of dye from the workshop below seeps into every room. Noise is constant. Voices, footsteps, the clatter of looms, the shouts of workers in the street. This is Caterina's world. But Caterina is not interested in noise. Even as a small child, she seeks silence. She hides in corners, slips away from her siblings, finds quiet spaces where she can, pray? She barely knows the words, but she feels something, a pull, towards something she cannot name. When she is 6 years old, something happens. She is walking home with her brother Stefano. They're crossing a bridge over the valley that separates Fonabranda from the city center. And Caterina stops. She looks up. Above the Dominican church of San Domenico, she sees a vision. Christ, robed in white, a papal tiara on his head, flanked by Saints Peter, Paul, and John. He looks at her, and he smiles. Stefano keeps walking. He does not see anything. Caterina stands frozen, staring, until her brother realizes she is no longer beside him and comes back to pull her along. She does not tell anyone what she saw. Not yet. But from that moment, something shifts inside her. At 7 years old, Caterina makes a private vow, a vow she tells no one. She will never marry. She will belong to Christ alone. Her family does not know this. They assume she will marry. Of course she will. That is what daughters do. Lapa is already planning. Caterina is beautiful. Dark hair, bright eyes, a grace that draws attention. She will make a good match. But Caterina resists. Not openly, not yet, but quietly. She delays. She avoids conversations about suitors. She spends more and more time in prayer. For 10 years, this tension simmers. And then, when Caterina is 16, the battle begins. Her older sister Bonaventura has just died in childbirth. Lapa is devastated, and she decides Caterina must marry Bonaventura's widower, keep the family connection intact. Caterina refuses. For the first time, she says it aloud. I will not marry. I have given myself to Christ. Lapa is furious. This is not how daughters behave. This is disobedience, rebellion. And so the family punishes her. They take away her private room, make her sleep in the common area. They assign her the work of a servant, scrubbing floors, hauling water, cooking, cleaning. They hope to break her will. But Caterina does not break. She accepts the humiliation with joy. She scrubs floors and thanks God. She carries water and prays. And in the midst of the chaos, the noise, the work, the constant presence of others, she discovers something. She can create silence inside herself. She calls it her inner cell, a space in her heart where God dwells, where no one can reach, where no amount of noise or labor or humiliation can disturb her. They can take my room, she tells herself. But they cannot take this. The family escalates. They bring in suitors, force her to meet them, dress her in fine clothes, arrange her hair, try to make her appealing. Caterina responds by cutting off her hair. Lapa is horrified, but Giacomo, her father, begins to notice something. One evening, he passes Caterina's doorway. She is kneeling in prayer, and he sees light coming from her, not reflected light, not a candle, light emanating from her body, as if she were on fire. He stops, stares, rubs his eyes. The light remains. He backs away slowly, and that night he gathers the family. Leave her alone, he says. She is not ours to control. Lapa protests, but Giacomo is firm. If God has called her, who are we to stand in the way? And so, at 16 years old, Caterina wins. She is allowed to join the mantle late, the Dominican tertiaries, laywomen who wear the white tunic and black mantle of the Dominican order, but live at home, not in convents. On a spring day in 1363, Caterina receives the habit. Her family celebrates. They think the battle is over. They are wrong, because now Caterina is about to do something even more extreme, something that will terrify her own mother. She's going to disappear. 1363. Caterina is 16 years old. She takes a room in her family's house. A small room, barely large enough to stand. No windows, one door, and then she locks it. From the inside, she will not speak to anyone. Not her mother, not her sisters, not her brothers. Only her confessor, Fra Tommaso della Font, once a week. For 3 years, Lapa is beside herself. What is she doing in there, she demands. She is wasting her life. But Giacomo holds firm. Let her be. What is Caterina doing? Praying. Constantly. She sleeps on bare wood, no mattress, no pillow. She eats almost nothing. A piece of bread, raw vegetables, water. Her body begins to change, becomes gaunt, hollow. She is not starving herself out of vanity. She is not even sure why she is doing it, only that she feels compelled. That food has become irrelevant, distracting. Her confessor is alarmed. He orders her to eat more. She tries, but her body rejects it. This will be a problem for the rest of her life. But the fasting is not the point. The silence is. In that room, with no distractions, no noise, no interruptions, Katerina prays, and prays, and prays, and the visions come. At first, they're beautiful. Christ appears to her. Mary, saints, they speak to her, teach her. She feels an overwhelming peace. But then the attacks begin. Demonic visions, temptations, thoughts she cannot control. Images of sin, lust, pride, despair flood her mind. She tries to resist, but the more she resists, the stronger they become. She is terrified. "Where are you?" she cries out to Christ. "I thought you called me here. Why have you abandoned me?" Silence. Days pass. The attacks intensify. She begins to wonder if she has made a mistake, if this is all delusion, if she should just leave the room, marry, live a normal life. And then Christ appears. "I was never gone," he says. "I was in your heart." But the temptations, she begins. "Did you consent to them?" "No." "Then they did not touch you." "Katerina, I am closer to you in the battle than in the peace. The peace is my gift, but the battle is where you prove your love." She weeps, and from that moment, the nature of her prayer changes. She is no longer seeking visions. She is seeking union, not experiences, but God himself. And slowly, painfully, she begins to understand something. God is not distant. He is not in the sky, waiting for her prayers to reach him. He is here, in her heart, closer than her own breath. And if he is here, then nothing else matters. The room fades away. The temptations lose their power. Even her body, weak, hungry, aching, becomes irrelevant. She is being forged. In 1366, after 3 years, Christ appears to her again. This time, he is not alone. Mary is with him, and she takes Katerina's hand and places it in Christ's. "I give you my son as your spouse," Mary says. Christ smiles. He takes a ring, invisible to everyone but Katerina, and places it on her finger. "You are mine," he says, "and I am yours. Now, leave this room. Go serve my people." Katerina is terrified. She has not spoken to another human being, besides her confessor, for 3 years. Her social skills have atrophied. Her body is weak. The world outside the door feels overwhelming. But Christ does not give suggestions. He gives commands. And so she obeys. She opens the door. And when she emerges from that room, something has changed. She has an authority she cannot explain. People feel it. They do not understand it, but they feel it. Her voice, silent for 3 years, is now the loudest in Siena. But that voice is about to be tested, because she is about to walk into hospitals and care for people dying of diseases so contagious, so repulsive, that even seasoned nurses refuse to touch them. And she will not just touch them. She will drink their blood. Santa Maria della Scala, the hospital in Siena, 1368. Katerina is 21 years old. The hospital is a place of last resort. The poor come here to die. The smell is overpowering, rotting flesh, excrement, disease. The Mantellate sisters serve here, but they choose their cases carefully. The clean ones, the manageable ones. Katerina volunteers for the worst. There is a woman dying of breast cancer. The tumor has broken through her skin. The wound is open, rotting. The smell is unbearable. Flies swarm. The other sisters refuse to care for her. Katerina volunteers. She approaches the woman's bed, forces herself to smile, begins to clean the wound. But even she, after 3 years of fasting, of mortification, of spiritual discipline, even she feels her stomach turn. The smell is too much. She gags, steps back, tries to breathe, and she is ashamed. How can I claim to love Christ, she thinks, if I cannot love this woman? She prays, but the revulsion remains. She cannot pray it away, and so she does something unthinkable. She takes a cup, collects the pus from the woman's wound, and she drinks it. Her body convulses. She nearly vomits, but she forces herself to swallow. That night, she has a vision. Christ appears to her. He offers her a cup. "Drink," he says. She drinks, and the liquid is sweet. Not water, not wine, blood, the blood from his side. "What you did for her," he says, "you did for me." The story spreads. Did you hear? Katerina drank the pus of a dying woman. She is insane. She is a saint. Both accusations follow her for the rest of her life. But Katerina does not care. She has learned something. Love is not a feeling. It is a decision, made over and over, in the face of revulsion, in the face of fear. And she continues. She takes the cases no one else will touch. Lepers, plague victims, the dying, the abandoned. And something remarkable happens. People begin to follow her. Not just women, men too. Priests, nobles, merchants, former sinners. They are drawn to her. Not because she is educated, she is not. Not because she is eloquent in the traditional sense. She speaks plainly, often bluntly. They follow her because she is real. She does not pretend. She does not perform piety. She simply lives as if God is real, as if every person she meets is Christ in disguise. By 1370, she has gathered a spiritual family around her. They call themselves the Bella Brigada, the beautiful company. They meet in her home. They pray together. They serve the poor together. Katerina becomes their leader, their guide, and priests, Dominicans from her own order, begin to ask her theological questions, expecting simple answers from an uneducated woman. But her answers are profound, detailed, nuanced, as if she has read books she has never opened, as if someone is teaching her, someone they cannot see. She quotes scripture she has never studied, explains doctrines she has never been taught. The Dominicans are unsettled. "Where did you learn this?" they ask. "From him who teaches all things," she replies. Some are convinced she is guided by the Holy Spirit. Others suspect delusion, or worse, demonic influence. The order investigates, sends theologians to question her, test her. She passes every test, not because she is clever, but because she is speaking from experience. She is not repeating doctrine. She is describing what she has seen, what she knows. By 1374, Katerina's reputation has spread beyond Siena. She is 27 years old, and she is about to be sent into the middle of a war. Because Italy is burning. Cities are at war with each other, and with the Pope. And Katerina, the woman who has never studied politics, never read history, is about to be sent to negotiate peace between armies. Not because she is qualified, but because she has something no diplomat has. She has authority, the kind that makes men, powerful, violent men, stop and listen. And in 1375, she will need that authority, because she is about to face a mob that wants her dead. Florence, 1375. Italy is a patchwork of city-states, each jealous of its power, each ready to go to war at the slightest provocation. And the biggest provocation of all is the Pope. Not the Pope himself. He is in Avignon, France. He has been there since 1309, 66 years. But his representatives in Italy, his legates, his mercenaries, are brutal, corrupt. They bleed the cities dry with taxes. And when cities resist, the mercenaries burn and pillage. Florence has had enough. In 1375, the city declares war on the Papal States. They call it the War of the Eight Saints, named after the 8 magistrates leading the rebellion. Pope Gregory XI is furious. He excommunicates the entire city, places Florence under interdict. No sacraments, no masses, no burials in consecrated ground. Florence does not care, but other cities are watching. Siena, Pisa, Bologna. If Florence wins, they might rebel too. If the Pope crushes Florence, the other cities will fall in line. The stakes are enormous, and Pope Gregory needs a mediator. Someone Florence will trust, someone who is not a politician. He chooses Katerina. Katerina is 28 years old. She has never been to Florence. She has never negotiated anything more complex than a dispute between neighbors. But Gregory has heard of her. He has read her letters. She has been writing to him for years, urging him to return to Rome, criticizing his reliance on mercenaries. Her letters are not diplomatic. "You are a mercenary, not a shepherd," she writes. "You hire men to kill in your name while you sit in a palace in France. This is not what Christ commanded." Most people would be offended by such language. Gregory is impressed. If she can write like that to me, he thinks, perhaps the Florentines will listen to her. And so, in June 1376, Caterina travels to Florence. She brings her spiritual family with her. A small group. No soldiers. No official escort. Just a woman and her friends. Florence is suspicious. She's a spy for the Pope, some say. She is naive, say others. She does not understand politics. Caterina meets with the 8 saints. She speaks plainly. The Pope is willing to negotiate, she says, but you must show good faith. The 8 saints nod. They seem receptive, but the city is restless. Anti-papal sentiment is high, and rumors spread. Caterina is here to betray us. One afternoon, a crowd gathers outside the house where Caterina is staying. They are angry, armed, shouting, "Come out," they yell. "Face us." Caterina's companions are terrified. "Stay inside," they beg her. "They will kill you." Caterina walks to the door. "What are you doing?" they shout. "If they want blood," she says, "let them have mine." She opens the door, steps outside. The crowd surges forward. Someone raises a knife. Caterina does not flinch. "Here I am," she says. "If you want my blood, take it, but do not harm the others. They are innocent." The crowd stops. Something in her voice, calm, unafraid, disarms them. The man with the knife lowers his hand. The crowd disperses. Caterina goes back inside. Her companions are shaking. "How did you do that?" they ask. "I did nothing," she says. "God protected me." But the negotiation fails. Not because of Caterina. She does everything she can. But the 8 saints, despite their promises, are not sincere. They use the negotiation as a stalling tactic. They have no intention of making peace. Caterina is furious. "You lied to me," she tells them. "You used me." They shrug. "This is politics. This is sin," she replies. She leaves Florence, disappointed, exhausted, but her reputation has grown. Pope Gregory has seen her courage, her integrity, and he begins to consult her more frequently. In April 1375, while praying in the church of Santa Cristina in Pisa, something happens. Caterina is kneeling. She has been praying for hours, motionless. Her companions watch her, used to her long prayers. And then she screams. They rush to her. She is convulsing, clutching her hands, her feet, her side. "What is it?" they ask. "What is wrong?" She cannot speak. The pain is overwhelming. They look for blood. There is none, no visible wounds. But she is in agony. When she can finally speak, she tells them, "Christ showed me his wounds. And then he pierced me with them." She looks at her hands. She sees wounds, bleeding, pouring blood. But her companions see nothing. "What do you see?" she asks. "Nothing," they say. "There are no wounds." Caterina looks again. The wounds are there, clear as day, blood running down her hands, pooling at her feet, but invisible to everyone else. "He granted me one mercy," she says. "The wounds are invisible. Only I can see them. Only I can feel them." The stigmata, for the next 5 years, until her death, Caterina will feel the pain of crucifixion in her body. Every single day. Her hands throb, her feet ache, her side burns. But she does not complain. She considers it a privilege, a sign that she is united to Christ's suffering, and she is about to need that authority, the authority of a woman marked by God, to do what kings and cardinals have failed to do for 70 years. She is going to bring the Pope back to Rome, or die trying. Let us pause and understand what has happened. A girl from Siena, who spent 3 years locked in a room, who emerged with an authority no one can explain, who now carries the wounds of Christ in her body, invisible but agonizing. This woman, who cannot write, who never studied politics, is about to walk into the most corrupt, luxurious, powerful court in Europe, the papal palace in Avignon, and she's going to tell the Pope to leave, to abandon 70 years of French influence. to return to a city, Rome, that is crumbling, violent, and dangerous. No one has succeeded in making this demand. Cardinals have tried. Saints have tried. They have all failed. But Caterina is not a cardinal. She is not even educated. What she has is something else. Something the Pope will not be able to ignore. Because when she speaks to him, she will reveal a secret. A secret he told no one. Not his cardinals. Not his family. No one. And when she speaks that secret aloud, he will know. God has sent her. The meeting in Avignon is coming. But first, Caterina has to get there. It is 1376. She is 29 years old. Her body is breaking down. She can barely eat. The stigmata wounds throb constantly. But she will walk 300 kilometers because the fate of the church depends on it. Avignon, June 1376. The papal palace rises like a fortress. Towers. Walls thick enough to withstand a siege. This is not a residence. It is a statement of power. Inside, the halls are lined with tapestries. Gold glints from every surface. The wine cellars are legendary. The kitchens prepare feasts that last for hours. While Rome starves, Avignon feasts. Pope Gregory XI is 46 years old. He is educated, cultured, pious. But he is also weak, controlled by the French cardinals who surround him. Men who have no intention of ever returning to Italy. Rome is barbaric, they tell him. Violent. The papal residence is falling apart. The Lateran Palace was destroyed by fire. St. Peter's Basilica leaks when it rains. Why would you leave this? They gesture to the opulence around them. For that, Gregory knows they are right, in a way. Rome is dangerous. The Orsini and Colonna families, two powerful Roman clans, are constantly at war. Any pope who returns will be caught in their crossfire. But Gregory also knows something else. Rome is the seat of Peter. The pope belongs in Rome, not Avignon. Years ago, before he became pope, Gregory made a vow. A private vow. He told no one. He vowed that if God ever called him to return to Rome, he would go. But now, as pope, the decision feels impossible. The cardinals oppose it. The King of France opposes it. Even his own family opposes it. How can he go against everyone? And then, Caterina arrives. She is led into his private chamber. A small room, away from the court. Just Gregory, Caterina, and a few attendants. Caterina kneels, but not in deference. In prayer. Then she rises, and she looks at him. "Holy Father," she says, "you know what God has asked of you." Gregory shifts uncomfortably. There are many things God asks. "Yes," Caterina says, "but there is one thing you have promised him. A vow, made in secret, years ago, before you became pope." Gregory goes pale. How do you know about that?" Caterina's voice is gentle but firm. "Christ told me. He told me that you vowed to return to Rome if he called you. And he is calling you now." The room is silent. Gregory has told no one about this vow. Not his cardinals. Not his family. Not even his confessor. If she knows, if she truly knows, then God has spoken. He stares at her. She meets his gaze without flinching. Not arrogant. Not defiant. Just certain. "The cardinals will never allow it," he says finally. "The cardinals do not rule the church," Caterina replies. "Christ does, and he is waiting for you to obey." Gregory leans back. He is shaking. "I am afraid," he admits. "Of course you are," Caterina says. "But Christ did not promise you safety. He promised you his presence. And that is enough." She stays in Avignon for several weeks, meeting with Gregory, praying, writing letters. The French cardinals are furious. They try to discredit her. She is a peasant, they say, an uneducated woman. Why are you listening to her? Gregory does not answer, but he is listening. In September, he makes the announcement. He is returning to Rome. The cardinals are stunned. Some refuse to go. They will stay in Avignon, they say. Let him go to his death alone. But Gregory is resolute. On September 13th, 1376, he departs Avignon. The journey is slow. He stops in Marseille. In Genoa, some hope he will change his mind. He does not. On January 17th, 1377, Pope Gregory XI enters Rome. He has not set foot in the city in his entire life. He was born in France, raised in France, educated in France. But now he is home. The city erupts in celebration. Bells ring. Crowds fill the streets. The Pope has returned, they shout. Peter has come home. Caterina is not there. She has returned to Siena, exhausted. But she receives the news with tears of joy. She has done it. Against all odds, against all political logic, she has brought the papacy back to Rome. It is her greatest victory, but it will be short-lived, because 14 months later, on March 27th, 1378, Pope Gregory XI dies. He is 48 years old. The stress of the move, the resistance of the cardinals, the chaos of Rome, it has taken its toll. And now, the cardinals must elect a new pope. And this election will not go smoothly. In fact, it will tear the church in two. And Caterina, exhausted, her body failing, will be called to fight one more battle. The biggest battle of her life. Because in 1378, the Great Schism will begin. And it will not end for 39 years. Rome, April 1378. Pope Gregory XI has been dead for 2 weeks. The cardinals gather for the conclave. But this is not a normal conclave. The Roman people are furious that the papacy was in Avignon for 70 years. They are terrified the new pope will leave again, return to France, abandon Rome once more. And so, they make their demands clear. A mob surrounds the Vatican. Thousands of people, armed, shouting, "Romano lo volumus," they chant. "We want a Roman, or at least an Italian." The cardinals are terrified. If they elect a French pope, the mob will riot. They might even kill the cardinals. On April 8th, they elect Bartolomeo Prignano, an Italian, Archbishop of Bari. He takes the name Urban VI. The Romans celebrate. Finally, an Italian pope. But within weeks, it becomes clear that Urban VI is difficult. He is abrasive, authoritarian. He insults the cardinals publicly, accuses them of corruption, demands reforms immediately. He is not wrong. The cardinals are corrupt. They live in luxury. They sell offices. They ignore their duties. But Urban's approach is brutal. He humiliates them, shouts at them, threatens them. The cardinals, especially the French ones, are horrified. "We made a mistake," they whisper. "We elected him under duress." The election is invalid. In August 1378, 13 cardinals flee Rome. They meet in the town of Anagni, and they make a declaration. The election of Urban VI was coerced by the mob. Therefore, it is invalid. Urban is not the true pope. And on September 20th, 1378, they elect a new pope, Robert of Geneva. He takes the name Clement VII. Now there are 2 men claiming to be pope. Urban VI in Rome, Clement VII in Avignon. Both claim legitimacy. Both excommunicate the other. Both demand the allegiance of the Christian world. Europe is forced to choose. France, Scotland, Castile, Aragon, they support Clement VII. England, Germany, Italy, Poland, they support Urban VI. The Great Schism has begun, and Caterina is caught in the middle. She receives letters from both sides. Friends urging her to support Clement. Urban is impossible to work with, they write. He is destroying the church. But Caterina does not hesitate. Urban VI is the legitimate pope. Not because he is a good man. He is not. Not because he is easy to work with. He is not. But because the election was valid. The cardinals were afraid. Yes, but fear does not invalidate an election. They chose Urban. He is pope. To claim otherwise is to open the door to chaos. If any election under pressure is invalid, then no election is secure. Caterina writes letters to kings, cardinals, bishops. "Do not be deceived," she writes. "Urban is the true pope. Even if he is difficult, even if he is harsh, he is the vicar of Christ, and we owe him obedience." Some listen, many do not, and some of her closest friends, people who have followed her for years, side with Clement. They break with her. "You are blind," they tell her. "You are defending a tyrant." "I am defending the truth," she replies. It costs her friendships, reputation. Her health, which is already fragile, deteriorates further under the stress. But she does not waver. In late 1378, Urban VI summons her to Rome. He needs her. her voice, her authority, her ability to convince people. Katerina is 31 years old. Her body is failing. She can barely walk without assistance. She faints during prayer, but she goes. She knows she may not return. She knows her body is breaking down, but she truly believes, that her suffering, if offered to Christ, can heal the church. And so she makes the journey, one last time, to Rome, where she will spend her final years in agony, fighting for unity in a church that is tearing itself to pieces. Rome, 1378 to 1379. Katerina is living in a small house near the Vatican. She goes to the Basilica of Saint Peter every day, prays for hours, immobile, her body rigid, her eyes closed. Those who watch her say it is as if she is no longer present, as if her soul has left her body and is somewhere else. When the ecstasy ends, she collapses. Her companions catch her, carry her home, and then she dictates. She cannot write. She never learned, but she can speak. And when she speaks, words pour out faster than her scribes can record. Sometimes 3 scribes work at once, each taking a different section, because if they try to keep up with her, they fall behind. She does not pause, does not repeat. The words flow like a river. Was she dictating? A book. She calls it Il Dialogo della Divina Provvidenza, the dialogue of divine providence. In English, we know it simply as the dialogue. It is unlike anything written before, not a theological treatise, not a devotional manual. It is a conversation between a soul, her soul, and God the Father. She asks questions. God answers, not in abstractions, but in vivid, poetic, sometimes shocking language. Imagine, God says, that I am a sea, an infinite sea of peace, and you're a fish in that sea. Can you ever leave the sea? No. Even if you swim to the surface, you are still in the sea. Even if you dive to the depths, you are still in the sea. I am the sea, and you can never escape me. Why would you want to? This is not the language of scholastic theology. This is poetry, mysticism, direct experience translated into words. Katerina dictates for months, sometimes in her home, sometimes in the basilica, sometimes in ecstasy, sometimes in exhaustion. Her body is failing. She eats almost nothing now, a few spoonfuls of vegetables, water. Her companions beg her to eat more. She tries. Her body rejects it. Doctors examine her. They find nothing wrong. No disease. No blockage. She should be dead, they say. But she is not. Her body is shutting down. But her mind burns brighter than ever. In the dialogue, she writes about God's love. Not as sentiment, but as fire. God's love, she writes, is not gentle. It is not soft. It is a fire that consumes, that purifies, that transforms. Do not seek comfort from God. Seek the fire. She writes about the nature of sin, not as offending God. God cannot be offended. He is infinite, but as wounding ourselves. When you sin, God tells her, you do not hurt me. I am beyond hurt, but you wound yourself. You cut yourself off from the source of life, and in that cutting off, you die. She writes about the church, about priests who are corrupt, about popes who fail. Even if the priest is a devil, God says, the sacraments are still valid, because the power comes from me, not from him. Do not judge the church by its ministers. Judge it by me. This is radical, especially in 1379, when the church is split, when priests are taking sides, when corruption is rampant. But Katerina is not interested in politics. She is interested in truth. The dialogue is completed in 1378. It spreads rapidly, copied by hand, circulated among monasteries, among the Bella Brigada, among anyone hungry for depth. But Katerina is not finished. She continues to dictate letters, hundreds of them, to kings, to popes, to bishops, to prostitutes, to mercenaries. Her tone is always the same, direct, urgent, no flattery, no diplomacy. To Pope Urban VI, she writes, be gentler. You're driving people away. To a mercenary leader, she writes, stop killing for money. You are destroying your own soul. To a young woman struggling with faith, she writes, Do not be afraid of darkness. God is closest to you there. 381 of these letters survive. We have them today, and they are astonishing, not just for their content, but for their range. She writes to everyone, and she writes as if she has authority over everyone. Not political authority, not institutional authority, moral authority, the authority of someone who has seen God. By 1379, the dialogue and her letters have made Caterina famous across Europe. But her body is collapsing. She can no longer walk unassisted. She faints during prayer. The stigmata wounds burn constantly, and she knows she is dying, but she does not stop. The church is bleeding, she tells her companions. How can I rest when the church bleeds? She is 32 years old, and she has 1 year left to live. Rome, 1380. Caterina can no longer stand. She is carried to the Basilica of St. Peter every day. Laid on the floor, she prays for hours, motionless, while her body screams in pain. The invisible stigmata given to her 5 years ago burn constantly. Her hands, her feet, her side. She has not eaten solid food in weeks, maybe months. Her body is a skeleton, her skin stretched over bone. Doctors can do nothing. Her spiritual family surrounds her, helpless, and Caterina knows she is not going to recover, but she does not want to. She wants to offer everything, her pain, her life, her death, all of it for the church. This is the heart of her spirituality. Suffering is not meaningless. When united to Christ, it becomes powerful. It becomes redemptive. Let me suffer, she prays. Let me carry the church's pain. If my death can bring unity, then let me die. And so she does not fight the dying. She embraces it. On April 29th, 1380, Caterina of Siena will take her last breath, but not before she speaks her final words. Words that will echo for centuries. February 1380. Caterina suffers a stroke. The doctors call it apoplexy. She is paralyzed from the waist down. She can no longer walk, can no longer stand, but she continues to dictate letters. Her companions prop her up. She speaks. They write. Her voice is weak, but her words are still sharp, still urgent. March 1380. She can no longer leave her bed. Visitors come to her. She counsels them from her pillow. Priests, nobles, the desperate, the curious. They leave shaken, not because she says anything complex, but because she speaks with such certainty, as if she has already left this world, as if she is speaking from the other side. April 1380. She is barely conscious. Her companions take turns sitting with her, praying, weeping. On April 21st, she opens her eyes, asks for her confessor, makes a final confession. Then she asks for everyone in the house to come to her bedside. They gather, 30 people, maybe more, crowded into the small room. Caterina looks at each of them. "Forgive me," she whispers, "for my failures, for my harshness, for anything I have done to hurt you." They weep. "There is nothing to forgive," they say. "There is always something," she replies. April 29th, 1380. Morning. Caterina is drifting in and out of consciousness. Her breathing is shallow, labored. Her companions pray around her. The Pater Noster, the Ave Maria, over and over. She opens her eyes once, looks at the crucifix on the wall. "Stay with me," she whispers, not to her companions, to Christ. Afternoon. Her breathing slows. Her body is shutting down. Evening. The sun is setting. Light streams through the window, golden, warm. Caterina's eyes open, wide, as if she is seeing something no one else can see. She tries to speak. Her companions lean in. "Sang," she whispers. "Blood." Sang, blood, blood. The blood of Christ. The blood she has written about in hundreds of letters. The blood she has seen in visions. The blood that redeems, that purifies, that saves. Those are her last words. Blood. And then silence. Her chest stops rising. Her hand goes limp. Caterina of Siena is dead. She is 33 years old, the same age Christ was when he died. 5 seconds of silence. Her companions sit in stunned silence. For hours. They cannot believe she is gone. She has been a force of nature, A whirlwind. How could she simply stop? But she has. The next day, they prepare her body for burial. And they notice something: the smell. There is no smell of decay. Her body is fresh, as if she has just fallen asleep. This will be noted by everyone who comes to view her. For days, her body lies in state. Thousands come to pay their respects. And still, no decay. The church will later investigate this. It will become part of the case for her canonization. But that is years away. For now, Caterina is buried in the cemetery of Santa Maria sopra Minerva in Rome. Her grave becomes a place of pilgrimage. People pray there, report miracles, but the greatest miracle is not the healings. It is the unity that will eventually come, the unity Caterina died praying for. April 30th, 1380, the day after Caterina's death, news spreads through Rome. The saint is dead. Crowds gather at Santa Maria sopra Minerva. They want to see her, touch her, pray near her. The Dominicans guarding her body are overwhelmed. They decide to move her, to bury her quickly, quietly, but the people will not allow it. She belongs to us, they say. She is our saint, and so she is laid in state for 3 days, and the crowds keep coming. People report miracles. A blind woman sees. A crippled man walks. A child's fever breaks. The Dominicans document everything. This is important. If Caterina is to be canonized, there must be evidence. But canonization is a long process. It will take decades. In the meantime, the church she died trying to heal remains divided. Urban VI continues to reign in Rome, but he is increasingly erratic. Paranoid, he arrests several cardinals, accuses them of conspiracy. Some are tortured. Caterina's supporters are horrified. This is the man we defended? But Urban dies in 1389, and his successor, Boniface IX, is more moderate. Meanwhile, in Avignon, Clement VII reigns as the rival pope. When he dies in 1394, another antipope is elected, Benedict XIII. The schism continues. 30 years pass. Europe is tired of the division. Theologians, kings, bishops, everyone is searching for a solution. Finally, in 1414, the Council of Constance convenes. Its mission: end the schism. By this time, there are not 2 popes. There are 3. A third claimant, John XXII, has emerged, complicating things further. The council takes drastic action. It forces all 3 to abdicate. In 1417, it elects a new pope, Martin V. And this time, everyone agrees. Europe unites behind him. The schism is over. 37 years after it began. Caterina did not live to see this. But her prayers, her letters, her suffering, her life poured out for the unity of the church, bore fruit. Just not her lifetime. 1461, 81 years after her death, Pope Pius II canonizes Caterina of Siena. The girl from Fontabranda is now Saint Catherine. Her feast day is set for April 29th, the day of her death. Her body, still incorrupt, is enshrined in the church of Santa Maria sopra Minerva in Rome. But her head is taken to Siena, a gift to her hometown. It is placed in a reliquary in the Basilica of San Domenico. To this day, pilgrims visit both places. Rome to see her body, Siena to see her head. But Caterina's legacy is not her relics. It is her words. The dialogue is read across Europe, translated into Latin, into French, into German. Mystics study it. Theologians debate it. Reformers quote it. Teresa of Avila reads it. John of the Cross reads it. Ignatius of Loyola reads it. Caterina, who never went to school, who never learned to write, is teaching the teachers. 1939, Pope Pius XII declares Caterina co-patroness of Italy, alongside St. Francis of Assisi, a woman and a man, together representing the heart of Italian sanctity. 1970, a revolution. Pope Paul VI proclaims Caterina a Doctor of the Church. This is extraordinary. The title Doctor of the Church is reserved for saints whose writings have made a significant contribution to theology. There are only 37 doctors in the entire history of the Church, and until 1970, all of them are men. On October 4th, 1970, Caterina of Siena becomes the first woman to receive this title. Alongside her, Teresa of Avila, two women, both mystics, both uneducated in the formal sense, both undeniable in their brilliance. The Church is saying, you do not need a degree to teach. You do not need institutional approval to speak truth. If God gives you wisdom, you're a doctor. 1999, Pope John Paul II declares Caterina co-patroness of Europe, not just Italy, Europe, alongside Saints Cyril and Methodius, Bridget of Sweden, Edith Stein, and Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. Caterina, the girl from Siena, now represents an entire continent. Today, her writings are read in dozens of languages. Her feast day is celebrated around the world. And in Siena, pilgrims still visit the house on Via dei Tintori, the tiny room where she spent 3 years in silence. They stand in that room, and they try to imagine, what happened here? What did she see? What did she hear? We cannot know. Not fully. But we know this. Whatever happened in that room gave Caterina a voice that spoke to popes, a voice that changed history, a voice that, 600 years later, still speaks. Today, Catherine of Siena's writings are read in dozens of languages. Her feast day, April 29th, is celebrated across the Catholic world. And in Siena, pilgrims still visit the house where she spent 3 years in silence, preparing for a mission that would shake Europe. What do we learn from the life of Saint Catherine of Siena? We learn that silence is not the absence of power, it is the preparation for it. Catherine spent 3 years speaking to no one, and when she finally spoke, popes listened, because her words came from a depth that only silence can create. In a world addicted to noise, to constant stimulation, to the need to always be heard, Catherine teaches us that the most powerful voices emerge from stillness, from the interior cell where God dwells. If you want your words to matter, if you want your life to have weight, first learn to be silent. We learn that suffering, when offered to God, is never wasted. Catherine's body broke under the weight of fasting, travel, and relentless service. She carried invisible wounds that bled for 5 years. She died at 33. Some might say she wasted her life, that she could have done more if she had taken care of herself. But Catherine believed, and the Church affirms, that her suffering was united to Christ's, that it bore fruit she cannot see, that her prayers helped heal a church she would not live to see restored. Suffering without meaning is tragedy, but suffering with purpose, suffering offered to God, becomes participation in redemption. Your pain is not meaningless. If you give it to God, He can transform it into something greater than you can imagine. We learn that holiness does not wait for permission. Catherine was a woman in the 14th century. She had no formal education, no official position, no institutional power, and yet she commanded popes, counseled kings, and shaped theology. Why? Because she knew God. And when you know God, when you have encountered Him in the depths of your soul, you do not need anyone's permission to speak truth. You speak because you must, because truth demands to be spoken. The Church eventually recognized what her contemporaries already knew. This woman's voice carried divine authority, not because men gave it to her, but because God did. The girl who disappeared into silence became the voice that could not be silenced. From a tiny room in Siena to the halls of the Vatican, Catherine proved that when God chooses a soul, nothing, not gender, not education, not institutional barriers, can stop the mission. Thank you for watching. May the example of Saint Catherine of Siena inspire your own journey of faith. Subscribe to Catholic Hearts to discover more extraordinary stories of the saints who shaped our faith.